Hi everyone, Kevin MacDonald here and welcome to the Progressive Property Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, I'm really excited to have Simon Hazeldine with me. Simon is a master negotiator. He's spoken about negotiation and sales techniques and tactics in over 30 countries around the world. He's a best-selling author for 5 different books. And one of the main reasons I want to get Simon on the podcast is I love negotiation. I've been listening to a lot of Simon's stuff for the last few years. One of the main things I've heard him talk about is bare knuckle negotiation. And I've been trying for a while to get him on a podcast to speak to him and share some of those things with the community. So really, really excited. I'd like to introduce Simon. So welcome to the podcast, Simon.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Real pleasure to have you on. You've obviously never met me before, but I've been following you from a distance for...
Oh, that's very kind. You've been stalking me.
I've been stalking you from a distance for a few years. I do a lot of stuff on no money down property investing. So a lot of your techniques, a lot of your tactics, the stuff I've read in your books, listened to your audibles and stuff, it really helps me in my business, or has over the last 3 or 4 years in property deals. And I'm specifically around property investing and stuff. But yeah, just for the audience, I guess you for me is one of the main people that I look to in terms of how to do negotiation. What do you see, I guess, as the key skills of a master negotiator?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Very kind of you to sort of to say what you have about it. I think you understand that being a good negotiator is a critical part of your skill set. If you want to have, a successful property portfolio, property investment business. What makes a really good negotiator is research shows, for example, that good negotiators gather twice as much information as they give. So they focus a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy in doing what I call getting inside the other person's head and understanding things from their point of view. So some really good in-depth research into negotiation behaviour shows that it's approximately 2 to 1. It's not exactly, but it's close enough for people to remember. The old cliche that lots of people have heard is 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that's the ratio. Yeah,
she told me that all my life.
There you go. Your mum's absolutely spot on. So that's not only a cliche; it's a truism, and it's also backed up. Good negotiators are also very well planned and prepared. So I spend a lot of time when I'm speaking and we're training, running negotiation seminars, and making sure that people are thoroughly planned and prepared, that they follow a planning process. That increases your confidence. That helps you consider options before they come up. And I know people think that the negotiation is the sexy, exciting cut and thrust. But that's only going to be sexy and exciting if you've done your homework in advance. You understand the person, you've done some research, you've thought through those kind of options. You decided, for example, if it's a property-specific thing, what you'd like to pay on a good day, what you intend to pay, as a realistic, and the most you will go to. You won't pay any more than that. And if you do, to walk away. Because I think far too many people get wrapped up in a deal. And the more time you invest in a deal, the harder psychologically it is to get out of it.
Get emotionally
and to back
attached.
away. Yeah, you do, and your ego and all that stuff goes in. But a good negotiator doesn't do every deal. A good negotiator does every deal that makes good commercial sense. So knowing when to walk, I think, is another important thing for people.
So you mentioned there are good negotiators. What do you think makes a good negotiator in terms of what would the key sort of?
I think some patience, is also a good thing, to be acting unhurried, even if you are in a hurry. I think is remaining as calm and objective as you possibly can, because emotions can obviously flare. Human beings are very emotional creatures. Neuroscience research shows that 95% of the influence on our decisions is from the more emotional, primitive regions of the brain. So it's trying to keep cool, calm, and collected. I think you can be very polite and respectful is also a good thing. You don't want to be. Research shows that good negotiators do less what are called irritator behaviours. Finger pointing, aggression, sarcasm, insults even than more successful negotiators. So keeping it professional as well, I think, is an important thing to do, particularly if you want to be doing repeat business with that individual or that organisation. So if you quote unquote shaft somebody, they're not likely to want to play again, So you've got to think about, what's the likelihood of you going to have to work with these people going forwards.
In negotiating, so when I was younger, I always seen a negotiator as sort of like used car salesman.
Yeah.
Is that like more 80s negotiation, or is it still?
Yeah, I think what negotiation is not is just an undignified haggle. Now that is what most people see on Only Fools and Horses, Minder, even, to be fair, Dragon's Den, because the negotiations, for example, on Dragon's Den, the real negotiations take place off camera. But it makes good television, okay? And the Dragons know what they're doing. They're very, very successful business people. They're very, very, very good. But the average man or woman in the street thinks it's open high, drop down, meet me halfway, back and forth. That's haggling, and there's nothing wrong with haggling. But negotiation is much more than that. Price is a factor in any negotiation. Usually, it is very rarely, if ever, the only factor. And if it's just got narrowed down to price, you might be missing other opportunities to add value to the deal for the other party.
It's really interesting you said that, because I spent about 10 years in property. Yeah. And I'd walk into a house worth, say, 200 grand, and I'd walk in and look at the bricks and mortar, not have any interest in the person, offer 25% below market value, thinking that's what I needed to do, but never actually considered the person. I never looked at their situation, their circumstances, etc. Then I started listening to your stuff, and I started getting more deals, because
that's
I focused on a key thing, a people business. So I guess is that what you mean in terms of like not just focusing on?
Yes,
on the numbers,
100%. So whenever I speak at sort of like progressive events or something, invariably people will sort of come up and ask to pick my brain to a bit of advice, and it's very interesting. They always tell me about the property first. Yes, and then what I say is, and of course that's important. Okay, now tell me about the people, and sometimes you get like a blank look. I go, well, all property is currently owned by somebody. Yeah. And you need to understand more probably about them than you do about the property. But we're busy doing, numbers and what's the yield going to be and how much can I make and all this sort of stuff. And you're doing all the numerical stuff. Forget it, you're not going to get your hands on it unless the person who owns it wants to sell it to you, or wants to do a deal or do a JV with you, or whatever it is. It is always about the people. So the property is important, but I say, tell me about the people, then tell me about the property. So what do they want? What are they interested in? What are they worried about? What are their hopes, their fears, their dreams, their ambitions, what's most important? They want to go and retire to Spain and live with their grandchildren or something. You need to know this. So then they might go, okay, well, then that sounds like a good deal to me. So very, very important part of the people side. It's essential people skill.
And it's the what they want, but what do they need now as well?
Yeah, and I mean, in my first book, Bare Knuckle Selling, I talk about the difference between wants and needs. In terms of a selling context for a second, people buy what they want, not necessarily what they need. So now let's move that over into the world of property. What somebody says they want for their property is largely based usually on something like they've had a look in the local paper, or the estate agent has said, oh, no problem, we'll get you £500,000 for it, knowing that they're probably not going to, but get them on the books. What do they need? Well, the point is, how much do they actually need for the for the property? So they're two different things, and questioning in negotiation is understanding what they really need to do. And of course, a property is worth what people are prepared to pay for it. Yeah. So my parents have recently sold. They've sort of downsized and moved into the same village my brother and I both live in, and they were offered nearly £100,000 in a blind auction, a bid. They were offered over £100,000. One person offered £100,000 more than the full asking price, because they badly wanted it. To be in the village, because it's got an amazing village school for the kids and all this. So they kind of went, well, if we miss out on this, so to them the house was worth £100,000. Yeah. Property is worth what somebody's prepared to pay for it.
Absolutely.
So find out what that is.
It's what they need. So what somebody's willing to pay for it, and also I get what the seller needs to leave. Yeah. And one of the things you said earlier is get in their head what they have in their head. And I always say now is you need to step into their shoes and see it from the seller's point of view.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I think good negotiators have the ability to do that. And you can then empathise with the person's position. Empathy is different to sympathy. Empathy just means I get how you're feeling. I understand how you're feeling. I maybe understand why this is important to you. But yeah, getting inside their shoes, getting around the other side of the desk. If it's, in a commercial, I always say to salespeople, get around the other side of the desk and see the world through the customer's eyes, the buyer's perspective. Because if you find out what's most important to people, and then you show them how you can help them get what's most important to them, that's selling and negotiating in a nutshell.
So solve their problem instead of trying to buy the house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The house is, it sounds bizarre or on a property podcast. Actually, the property is possibly the least important part of the overall success as a negotiator. It'll come as a byproduct of what you do.
And especially if you're just buying a house, that's fine. But if you're doing creative strategies, and a lot of what I do on No Money Down stuff is creative. Lease options, assisted sales, exchange delayed completions.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to want to do those deals. What their starting point is, well, I just want my money now.
Yeah.
And I guess the only way that you could do those type of deals is to get into their shoes, into their head, and see what they really need.
And I think, and here's where I would draw a distinction. You've got to sell them on that. For example, you've got to sell them the concept of the lease option. You've got to let them sell them, convince them it's a good idea, then negotiate how you're going to do the lease option. So there is a persuasion piece.
Yeah.
Because pretty much every average man or woman in the street understands that the way it's done is you give me money, I give you the house. And that's the only. So all of the other creative strategies is going to be brand new to them.
Yeah.
So you've got to be able to sell them on the idea first, and then the more they value the idea, the more amenable they will be to do the deal. And you're creating, some of the creative strategies, you are creating a deal with them that's collaborative and works well, and they can be hugely successful.
And you're not buying a house, you're selling a solution.
Yes, and that fundamentally this is like sales 101. Is it's not the product or service, it's what the product or service does for the person. Them. So it is a solution to their problem, and you are understanding their needs and then showing them how your solution helps them get what they need.
Right.
And the wants and needs, what they want, what they need, and then what you have to do is get them to want what's really beneficial for them and for you as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's got to be win-win.
Yeah, and unless it's a one-off thing, like the example I gave when I was speaking earlier was buying a car from a garage. It's a one-off transactional purchase. So that's more of a win-lose style of negotiation.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a more creative option where you're going to have an ongoing relationship with a person, or you need their cooperation and commitment to make it work, it has to be the more. It's an overused phrase, but and misinterpreted sometimes, but more of a collaborative win-win style of approach. Because if you shaft somebody, you might get one deal, but you ain't getting any more from them. And also social media these days and reputation, word of mouth is a very powerful and also a very bad form of marketing, depending on what's being said about you.
On that, what do you think sort of the biggest mistakes people make in negotiating then?
Yeah, I think it's probably moving too quickly to sort of doing the bargaining. How much are we going to pay? And then they don't spend enough time planning and preparing. They don't spend enough time understanding the perspective from the other person. I think also is people sometimes, particularly maybe newer property investors, property developers, are sometimes just very anxious to get some notches. Get some numbers in, get some deals done, and sometimes pursue a deal far too long when they should walk away because they feel as though nothing's happening and it's not working. But if your first 5 deals that you sign up are all pretty bad, you're going to have those bad boys in your portfolio for a while. Don't.
I kind of did some of that myself at the start.
Yeah, and everybody, and also I think the other thing is keep your ego out of it. It's not about don't get your personal stuff tied up in a business deal. It's nothing. It's just business. It's not about you and stuff. Just relax and just take your time. And if you sign up probably say 2 great deals, that is way better than 22 bad deals.
Yeah.
So I think just be, and knowing when to walk away and understanding that it's okay to feel uncomfortable and that you should expect to probably feel a bit uncomfortable. But people then sometimes they pay their way out of their discomfort with a bigger discount or more price or something. So, understand if you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, that's called being human, and that's really normal, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I speak to a lot of people actually on that, where they maybe they're starting out and they've done 6 or 7 viewings and they didn't get a deal, and then they pay too much for one just to get started.
Yeah.
And I always say to people, 1 in 10. If you can get 1 deal in 10, but follow the same process on negotiating.
Yeah. And I think that's the value of people getting educated and trained and mentored by people who've been there and done it. Because what is a good ratio? 1 in 10's fine, and then go, okay, 1 in 10's fine. I know. I can. How do you know if you're just starting out? How do you know what a good ratio? So that is the value of, it's an old cliche, but the more you learn, the more you earn. And learning from people and being around people who have done what you want to do. You have to make an investment into whatever business. You have to put an investment into it. So got to be done.
For somebody starting out looking to sort of do negotiating, whether it be through estate agents, direct to vendor, letting agents, whatever it may be, even negotiating with an investor to raise funds.
Yeah.
What would you say the key skills they should focus on are initially to learn negotiation?
Yeah, I think understanding negotiation sort of goes through 5 stages. So broadly speaking, most negotiations follow a process of sort of planning and preparation. Then some discussion takes place, stage 2, where you understand. Then when I understand your ideal position, you understand mine, then one of us can make a little proposal, and then we're into maybe the bargaining stage and the closing. So understand that it is a process, follow the process, plan very well, over-plan to begin with until it becomes habitual and it becomes second nature. And then I think just relax, and the more desperate you are, the worse deal you will do. There's a fantastic American negotiation guru, a guy called Jim Camp, who very sadly passed away 3 or 4 years ago. And I was listening to Jim doing a Q&A, and this guy said, "Hey Jim, I've set up my own business and I must get this deal." He said, "I must get this deal. What tell me what to do, because I must get it. Jim Camp's response: get a job. Get a job so you don't have to do the deal, pay the bills, and then set your business up in your spare time. He said, because if you go in that desperate, you're going to get, I don't think he said this, but my words, you're going to get taken to the cleaners. Yeah. They will just see the desperation, and particularly an experienced negotiator that maybe has had a bit of a moral bypass. They're going to eat you for breakfast if they sense that desperation. Yeah. The less desperate you are, the less you want it, the more likely you'll be able to get a deal that's going to work for you.
Yeah, true. I negotiated with my wife, and she wanted to move home. She's going to kill me for sharing this, but she won't listen. She wanted to move home, so I'm smart. I thought, right, this is cool. We're going to move to a house. We couldn't afford any properties, so I was starting out, and I had a lot of debt. So I said, we'll move to a property that we can rent initially and buy later. So I said she had to find properties. The deal was she'd find them. I was hoping she wouldn't find any. She'd find properties that were available for rent and for sale. And the deal was, if she found them, we'd move to the one that I could negotiate the best deal on.
Ah, okay.
Good plan? Here's the problem. Guess how many she found?
1.
Well, 2.
Okay.
The 2 she wanted to live in. So, in negotiation, you gotta prepare and plan for the eventuality, which was, I didn't really think it through. So I get your planning stuff up front.
I know I kind of banging on about planning, right? But it's because it's just so important. And I see it's usually the biggest weakness. Yeah. It's usually the biggest weakness.
So if you're looking to go into a property negotiating, there's a house you're interested in, you're looking to go into it, what sort of things do you think people need to plan beforehand?
So what your negotiation objective or outcome is, yes, it's to get it, but the property, but for how much money, and what are you going to do with it, and do a realistic assessment of the commercial potential. Yeah. Sometimes possibly even stress test it. Maybe if it goes really well, I'll get this, we'll make this much. If it goes okay, we'll get this much. If it goes really bad, but this is, and make sure you've done that. All the usual stuff, like having a look at comps and what houses, if it's if it's domestic, having a look at what it's sold for, so on and so forth. Do a Google search on the person, see if they're on social media. Are they on LinkedIn? Have a look at their profile, have a look at their background, look at how the language they use. Are you trying to get a little insight into their personality preference? So research the property, research the person. Think about your objectives. Think about your range, what you'd like to pay, what you intend to pay, what you will walk, where you will walk away, what you'd like to get, what questions, what information you need to gather, what questions, therefore, do you need to ask to get that information, and what would be, for a first meeting, what would be a reasonable next step.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to sign on the dotted, but have a clear end in mind, as good old Stephen Covey used to say.
Yeah. For
the first meeting. And the end in mind for the first meeting might be that you would agree that you will meet again to talk in more detail. But having a very clear next step to every deal you've got in your pipeline, I think, is an important thing, because if there's no clear next step, then that doesn't necessarily. And obviously, do your numbers, the financials, and think about, if you gave that, what would you want back in return? General principle of negotiation. If you do this, then I will do that.
Right. You said, very interesting. You pointed a few times there. You said first meeting, and a lot of people I meet, and they think they have to offer on the first meeting, but you can stretch it out. Possibly, in fact, definitely, some of the time, the last thing you should do is making an offer in the first meeting, because have you gathered enough information? You might want to go away from the person who currently owns or controls the property and think about what would be a reasonable offer. I think if you do it in the heat of the moment, sometimes there's a real danger you're gonna, and you might want to sleep on it and have a little think and go, okay, now the emotion has subsided. How good a deal do I think I can do? And obviously, you do need to move at speed. Always. Money loves speed. I think Joe Vitale used to say, if you can do the deal on Friday, do the deal on Friday. Obviously, close them as quickly as possible. When it's right to do so. When you can do a close a deal as fast as possible, because if you say I'll come back on Monday, stuff changes over the weekend. Yeah. So definitely move fast, but move fast when the deal is right, not just move fast for the sake of it.
In haste, you make a stupid, offer 50k more, and you. Once a number's out, it's out. Once it's been said, it's been said. There's no way to retrieve it.
Yeah, I just say to people is put a low offer in, because you can always go up, but if you start high, you're going to struggle to come down.
Yeah. First price stated has a sort of what's called a price anchor, psychological price anchor effect.
Yeah. The biggest mistake I ever made in a deal was I gave a price thinking it was low, and the response I got from the seller was yes.
Yes.
To which I almost went.
Well, if there's two possibilities. If you say I can't pay you any more than $250, and they say that's excellent, you've either done a great job of just getting the sweet spot, or
paid too much.
You've paid too much, and I have to say, more often than not, it's going to be the latter one rather than the lucky. As a speaker, sometimes and someone says, "How much are you going to charge to pay?" And I say, "Oh, it's this much," and they go, "That's fine." You go, "Oh God, I should have asked for more." So I think. You're right. Be bold. Be bold, and because you can. It's not your final. It's never going to be your final figure. Yeah. So keep some flex.
And a lot of people I meet, and they're afraid of a no. They're fearful, and they don't make an offer in the first place because they're afraid of somebody saying no. Yeah. Or they do make an offer, but they go in too high in case somebody says no. Or they feel themselves it's too low.
Yeah. Human beings have an innate need for approval, and rejection is not a positive experience that anybody's. If you've asked. When we were younger, we asked somebody out on a date and they said no. It's awful rejection. Or you're rejected.
I got that a lot.
Yeah, me too. or you're rejected at school, or so people have it. And understandably, being rejected is not a pleasant thing to happen. But if you're going to be going into business, you're going to be persuading people, selling, negotiating, doing deals. Of course, you've opened yourself up to that happening almost without hesitation. Is going to happen to you plenty. So realise it's not you personally that they are rejecting. It may be the way the deal is looking. Looking. I mean, it could be you. They don't. For whatever reason, you just don't gel with each other. Well, maybe it's a good thing you find that out earlier rather than later, if that's going to be the case. But if you're asking for, you're asking for things more often in business. You're putting in more offers. Your rejection rate's going to go up.
Yeah.
But every no is moving you potentially forwards. You're learning from it and moving it forwards. And it just is, it's just going to happen. I mean, look at actors. If you look at actors and actresses,
Get rejected all the time.
The rate is phenomenal. If you talk to people who are in that, that is part and parcel of their industry and their life, and that you just have to get used. You just have to get used to it. Like with authors, how many times? I think the famous examples that we all hear: J.K. Rowling rejected 10.
Yeah.
Harry Potter was rejected 10 times. Now, obviously, those 10 people are now probably going, "Ooh, bad move," but she kept on. She kept on going.
Yeah.
So it just happens.
The people that get a rejection on a property deal, they think you mentioned there, they think that maybe they didn't want to sell the house, but actually the house is on the market for sale potentially. So if the house is on the market for sale and the person says no to your offer, they're not saying no, I don't want to sell the house. They're saying no, I'm not quite happy with your offer.
Yeah. Or there could be other, it's on the market, but they're not really, really...
They're testing it.
They're testing it. See, they don't really want to move, or one partner does and the other partner, so, but yeah, it's not, you put an offer and they say no, so they say no. You're in exactly the same position you were before you asked.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask, you have rejected yourself. If you think about it.
That's a really cool way of looking at it, actually.
If you don't ask, you have rejected yourself.
Yeah.
What happens if they say no? Well, if they say no, they say no. That's
At least you know.
Yeah, I mean, I started my sales career door to door, and somebody said to me, if you want to be in sales, going door to door is a good thing to do. Definitely wouldn't want to do it now. But boy, oh boy, you learn pretty quickly that it's water off a duck's back. It's water off a duck's back. Nobody likes to be rejected. I don't like anybody saying no to me. But if you don't ask, the answer's no. If you don't ask, the answer's no. So
I guess you can always say as well, if they say no in a deal, one of the things I say a lot is, what is it about my offer that you're not happy with?
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It's an old 1970s kind of American sales training.
I learned it in school.
I think it was sometimes called the Columbo close, after the old detective. People of younger generations won't know who I'm talking about, but or the doorknob close. You get to the door, they say, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and then just as you're about to leave, you turn to the person and go, "So what is it? What is it that I got wrong? What is it you didn't like about my day?" And find out, and then come back in and. I don't want to make it sound too techniquey, but if they say no, say, what is it? What is it you don't like? What is it didn't work? What did I miss? What have I got wrong? And they'll educate you.
Right. So obviously most of our listeners are property people, not all of them, but it is a progressive property podcast.
So you would hope so.
Yeah. So I guess most of you are property listeners, but maybe some aren't. But for those that are property listeners, are thinking about getting into property, what would be your sort of top 3 sort of tips for getting better results in a negotiation?
I think do your homework and do your research. So if you're after targeting a specific area or something like that, I think not in life and in negotiation, definitely. It's another cliche. Knowledge is power. Yeah, and it is power. Walk the streets, have a look, get to know the areas, monitor things, watch what's happening. So you become kind of the expert authority on the bit, wherever your area of town is, whatever you decided to what area you decided to work on. So you've got the knowledge in place. Then I think is to ask more questions and do less talking and more listening. I think is the most important. Find out what is most important to people, and then see, particularly with some of your creative, with the, lease options and things like that. Find out if you can construct something that is going to meet what that person needs, solves their problems, takes away their pain, helps them get what it is, the output and the outcome, and then show how you can help them get what they want. And then you'll have a really motivated seller or JV partner or whatever it is who wants to do that deal. Get out your own head, get inside the other person's head, get inside their shoes, as you said earlier. I think will be really top advice.
So I get people ring me sometimes or message me and they say, a house has just gone on the market last week. I want to do a creative deal. Is it easy to do creative deals with a house that's just gone on the market, or is it better for longer term properties?
Well, I think there's an expression I use when we're talking about the balance of power in a negotiation, is that usually the person with the least time has the least power. My hunch would be that most of the time, if it's just gone on, they've nothing to compare it to. They might have had 17 people flood round, and you go in and you go, we'll do a creative, and they go, we're just going to wait and see. I think, and then when it's the longer it's been on, if they need to move, or they've got to move, they've got to change, they've relocated or whatever, or they've got financial difficulties, the less time they've got and the more pain they are feeling, the more motivated they will be to do a deal. It's not meant to sound in any way exploitative, but the bigger the problem they have, the more motivated they will be to get it sorted out. So they kind of have to probably, we've just put it on the market, we'll see. You're not likely to be able to do something. So they're going
to want their asking price and or more.
Because they don't have anything to compare it to. If people have a problem, they are interested in a solution. And then you can sometimes be quite creative. I say so. Doing something, probably highly motivated person is going to be more amenable to a creative deal.
Right. Do you have any tricks or hacks or stuff that could help people for helping them with a negotiation?
Yeah, I think.
Or tools.
Yeah, I think I'd say there's two schools of thought on making an offer. One is get them to go first, or you go first. So I'll give you the pros and cons of the two. If they go first, you now have more information, or at least you've got a figure in play. The downside is it can act as a psychological price anchor, and it could be a quite fictitious figure, and it's going to be their best, super duper. But now you've got more information to respond to. So providing you can neutralise the effect of the price anchor, that's my preferred strategy. The other way is to go first to put a stake in the ground to flush them out. So I think is recognising the impact of first figure stated as a tip. First figure stated will have some sort of an anchoring effect. So be aware of that. Probably the four most important words in negotiation are if you, then I. So if you do this, then I will be able to do that. So if you can accept the £50,000 lower offer, then I would be able to transfer the funds within 7 days. Or if you do this, then I would be able to do that. So find out, particularly in property negotiations, find out about time. Find out about how long has it been on the market, how soon do they need to do. If they've got some compelling event or something they need to do, something they want to do, the closer they are to that timeline, the more amenable they're going to be to doing a deal. But so then if you do this, then I can do that.
So things like starting a dream job in Dubai in 2 weeks' time,
and they just want to get rid of it, or they become an accidental landlord because of a bereavement or something, and okay, so there's not necessarily a hard event, but it's their mum's house, and every time it reminds them and all this, so that would be a great thing to take that away. Let's just, and also people who have become accidental landlords think, well, we'll rent it out for a bit and go, how hard can it be?
With no experience of being a landlord.
With no experience of being a landlord, okay. So, funnily enough, not all tenants are incredibly well behaved. It's
you learn that. Another one I come across a lot is they're moving. They've found a dream home. They're about to offer on the dream home. They've offered on it, but somebody else has put a bid in, and they need to sell, and they're about to lose it.
Yeah. So Professor Robert Cialdini, Arizona State University. The book is Influence, the art and science, I think, of persuasion. 6 principles in there. Fantastic book. Very, very grounded in good quality academic research, but an easy read. Scarcity principle. One of the 6 principles, kind of unconscious influence. It's the fear of loss of scarcity. If we don't do this, we might lose our dream home. So not to be unethical about, trying to, not being manipulative, but just saying to them, if you can't do this, what happens? Well, potentially we're going to miss out on our dream home. Okay. Well, you don't want to do that, do you? No, okay. Because there's the scarcity of the dream home. So the more scarce something is, the more valuable it is, which is also a reason why you may not want to be overly available yourself. A little bit of scarcity is, I would be very interested to see if we can progress this, because I have a number of deals I'm looking at the moment in that I have in the pipeline, and as you can imagine, I don't have unlimited funds, so I will need to be choosing the deal that's going to give me the very best return. So it'd be really good for me to be able to understand more about this, so I could see if this is a viable opportunity for me, and also if it's a viable opportunity. So you're almost taking yourself away from, and then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, hang on a minute, I thought this guy was crazy keen to get their hands on my, oh, hang on a minute.
It's like a kid with a toy.
Yeah.
You take it off and they want it back.
Yes. Yeah. So don't be that desperate. Yeah, come round. Yeah, I'll come round. Yeah, okay. Okay, well, I'm actually viewing some other properties. Yeah, you're not lying. You're telling the truth. Of course you're viewing. Of course you've got other opportunities in your pipeline. Tell the truth, but don't make them think that their property is the only deal in town, because if they think that, they'll drive the price up.
And you're not haggling them down on a low offer, I guess. What you're doing is you're giving them a lower offer so they get their money now, which gives them what they want, which is the dream home. Yeah,
it's absolutely right. And how much do you need for this property to allow you to move into your dream home? Might be less than maybe the price.
So you're actually helping them get what they really want.
And how cool is that?
That's cool. Yeah.
How cool is that? That's
make money and help people at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And never make any apologies for the fact there's some profit and some money in it for you, right? So be honest. I'm a professional investor. This is how I make my living. This is how I make my money. I am expecting to get some profit out of this deal. Hope that's kind of clear and understood. Yeah. Just be blatant about it. What are you doing it for otherwise? The good of your health.
Really. And then they think that you're not being honest and credible because...
And also I think, we're speaking like that, they know you're a professional investor. This is not amateur half hour. So Cialdini, again, Robert Cialdini, you're now seen as more of a figure of authority. Yeah. And figures of authority are obeyed and are more persuasive. People are perceived to be an authority are more persuasive than people who are not. Hence, be the expert on your area. Well, I want this much for it. Okay, so where did you get that figure from? Well, that's what the similar properties in the local paper are. Okay, so those are the asking prices. Do you know what in the last 3 months what houses in this area have actually sold for? That's the sort of thing, and they go, oh no. So let me show you some. And you can look on for yourself at these.
Right move or somewhere, get the sold prices.
And do it live. I mean, do your research in advance. Make sure you got the right. Don't suddenly dive on and go, oh, okay,
this sold for more.
Yes. So that's definitely
where the planning comes in.
Yeah, that's the planning. But that again is evidence. That's proof. That's absolute proof.
So what's the best advice you've ever had?
Best advice, probably my first boss when I was in sales. He said, you need to keep the last 2 months of every month clear in your diary. I said, why is that? He said, because you've got to go and get the checks. This was in the days when direct debit was if. And I went, have I got to go and get the money then? And he went, yes, Simon, because a deal isn't a deal and a sale isn't a sale until the money's in the bank. So until the money's in the bank, make sure you manage that deal, carry the ball over if you're in the rugby analogy, if the ball's 1 yard from the try line, carry that ball over yourself. Keep very, very close until everything is done, because deals fall out of bed for all sorts of reasons. I think in Resi is what one in 3 deals sales falls through for all sorts of reasons. So you've got to really, 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 really focus.
It's a really, really important point, because and I see people do this a lot, and I've made the same mistake, is go into a house, secure a really good deal, go outside, celebrate because you had a handshake, disappear, leave it to solicitors, ring them back 4 weeks later, and they say, sorry, who's Kevin? Yeah. I thought you had disappeared. I sold it to somebody else.
Never, ever, ever celebrate anywhere where anybody can. I know that sounds really obvious, but people do. You should walk out of that door looking like you've been eaten alive,
jumping around in the front garden, and they're looking out the window.
Yes, yeah. But also and as well, I think this is also part of how you think and plan and prepare. Is don't turn up in this huge flashy car. Keep your nice watch tucked up your sleeve. You don't want to be looking too affluent. I was
not in a weird stripy shirt.
No, definitely not one of those. We had a supplier years ago, a company I worked for, and the guy would turn up in his Ferrari. Now he was a very successful businessman in all. He had property and all sorts of things, and but it was a bit like you're coming in to see your customer in a Ferrari. Yeah. This is just rubbing the buyer's nose in. Just because you've got to realise most of the people he's dealing with, they're employees. Yeah. They're never probably going to have a... So, be as much like them as you possibly can. That's really, really good rapport. Keep your... Have whatever car or watch you like, but just think about the impression you're making on...
Show up in a Ferrari to a property viewing and you're trying to negotiate the price down, and they're like, you can pay me anything you like.
Yeah, it's just kind of people's lack of, I think, just sort of emotional intelligence about the impact. Well, maybe if I do that, they'll realise I'm very successful. Or maybe if you turn up in your Ferrari, they're going to think you're a bit of an idiot,
I think it probably works both ways too. If you show up in a really bad car, you can't afford it.
Absolutely. So, with my customers, I have a car that I think shows that I'm a successful, professional kind of person. But it's the sort of car they might also have, as well. So it's I don't want to be like turning up in a rusty, battered old, Reliant Robin Del Trotter van, because they're going to go, so this is the guy who's going to be teaching us how to negotiate. Okay,
the car doesn't say
the car doesn't. Yeah. So I think it's appropriate. It's about appropriate things and relationships, rapport with people. Yeah.
Okay, that's really good advice. Worst advice you've ever received?
On negotiation, I think it probably comes from a variety of sources. People will, you've got to go in tough. Got to go in hard. It's the macho, testosterone-laden advice. Bang the table, do all this stuff. There is a place for that. But it's a particular context. You don't have to be, nasty to be a tough negotiator. Mahatma Gandhi was a great negotiator. Nelson Mandela, great negotiator. But those sort of guys. So I think it's that sort of stuff. And I think is also, I think, is sometimes some of the success guru self-help. You want it. You got to want it. Yeah, you want the output, but if you go in all the time going, I want this deal. Yeah, you'll get it, but you're going to pay through the nose. You're going to pay stupidly. So bizarrely, the least you want it, the easier it is for you to get it. Is counterintuitive.
So don't come across desperate and stuff.
No, don't come across. Don't come across. Show you're keen. Should respond quickly, be professional, and follow up, and keep your eye on the deal. Don't leave it to solicit. I mean, in recent family, my parents moving house, the incompetence on the part of probably both solicitors was breathtaking. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly in any profession. When my wife and I, last time we moved house, we couldn't get the keys because the solicitor was on the golf course. It was just stuff like that. It's just, and when you find a really good one, that's the other thing as well. The other thing, when you can't find your really good solicitor, your builder, your mortgage broker, as well, to build a very deep, ongoing relationship with those people because they are critical to your success. Keep in touch, look after them, make them feel valued and part of your team. And then jealously guard them. And if anybody says, "Can you recommend me a really good," if they're busy, go, "No."
That's one of my problems with because I teach no money down training at Progressive, and everyone that I teach, they say, "Who's your solicitor? Your accountant?"
Yeah.
Now I can't get my own solicitor.
Yeah.
They're too busy doing everyone else's deals.
So a little bit of proper selfishness sometimes, you don't know. I'm kidding. We don't mind, we love to recommend. We love to recommend people. But if it's a really great builder, now they are difficult. They can be difficult to come by. So, you probably don't want to be shouting to, because the guy's only got 5 days, 6 days in the week when he's working. So, you've got to be a little bit focused.
Don't give people my builder.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Look, so in negotiation especially, people often say to me, oh yeah, you got lucky on that deal. And you mentioned a lot about preparation. Do you think there is such a thing as luck, or you get lucky, or is it more about...
I'm not saying that there can be situations and time in life where the stars seem to align and you're in the right place at the right time. I absolutely understand that. But to attribute to success to such a nebulous concept, I think is misguided. There's all the old cliches. A million people apparently have said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. I'm not sure who said it in the first place. But, if you're out there doing more viewings, you're out there doing more deals, you're out there doing more work, you are investing money in yourself and your education so you can know, that's not luck. That's action. That's action you are taking. If you're seeing more properties than the next guy, then it's not. They'll call you lucky when they see the output. People will say, "Oh, you're lucky, lucky so and so." They see the car, they see the house, they see, "Oh, you're lucky." They don't see the graft and the work that went into creating the luck. And a guy, I think it's Professor Richard Wiseman, I think if I've got his name correctly, did a book called The Luck Factor. And a fascinating book on the concept. And people who considered themselves to be lucky behave in different ways to people who consider themselves to be unlucky. So whatever it might be, cognitive bias is they do, for example, people buy more lottery tickets, and that's a crazy example, but he said they found out that people who think they're lucky buy more lottery tickets and raffle tickets than people who think they're unlucky. So therefore, even though it's a tiny, huge thing statistically, you're statistically slightly more likely to win if you've bought more tickets in the raffle. So, and there are whole lots of examples in there around how there is difference between people who can. In his book, it's very interesting to have a look. And of course, there will be the odd.
That's the luck factor.
Yeah, the luck factor. Yeah. Richard Wiseman, I think it is. But as a general principle, I think you make your own luck through the work and the effort and the focus that you put in.
I always say labour under the correct knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. And then, if you get a few lucky breaks along the way, but if you're the person, are you lucky if you're in the estate agent and the guy goes, "Oh, I tell you, I've got this one in the drawer here. You might have a look at that." Now, is that? We say, "Well, that's lucky." No, you went into the agent, and maybe it's the fifth time. And you've got to know them, and they now go, "Oh, this guy's serious. This guy might be a player. This guy might be useful to me. I think That's not luck. That's frequency of contact.
It's showing up.
Yeah. Show up. What's it, Woody Allen? Something. Whatever percentage of success is showing up. Something like that. You know. So, yeah, not a concept. Luck. I don't have lucky horseshoes or rabbit's feet or any of that superstitious stuff. So,
Really, really insightful. Obviously, I'm conscious of your time and stuff as well. I found that hugely valuable.
My pleasure.
If people want to know more about Simon, see Simon, how do you get in touch?
So my website, www.simonhazeldine.com, SIMONHAZELDINE.com, and then LinkedIn. Feel free to. If they mention the Progressive Property podcast, I'll know where it's come from. I'm happy to connect with people on LinkedIn.
Right.
At Simon Hazeldine is my Twitter handle, and simon@simonhazeldine.com is my email address.
I guess just putting in with the way the World Wide Web is now, type Simon Hazeldine into Google, you're going to find him.
It's me or a consultant anaesthetist, I think, the last time I did it to see just where I was.
So there's two of them.
There's two.
It's not the anaesthetist.
It's the anaesthetist, yeah.
Which I can't pronounce being Irish.
No, I don't think many people can either, can they?
So really, really awesome, Simon. Pleasure to have you on.
Okay, thank you.
I found it phenomenal, because I am a lover of negotiation anyway, because I do creative strategies.
Absolutely.
You've obviously been listening to the Progressive Property Podcast. If you've not already registered to the podcast, because I know we're also doing a video live at the moment, so if you've not also been listening to the podcast or not on it, you can tune into the Progressive Property Podcast on either iTunes or Stitcher. It comes out every Tuesday. Make sure you subscribe. I'm doing it every week. We've got different people on the podcast. Simon, today, it's been absolutely awesome.
Thank you.
I've been Kevin McDonald. Speak soon.
Good stuff. Good.
How's that?
It's great.
I think that was really good.
Yeah, that was good.